You get a clone. You get a clone. Everybody gets a clone. Welcome to episode 411 of an Unearthly Podcast, streaming live on the 13th of July, 2021, and featuring The Rebel Flesh and The Almost People. Written by Matthew Graham and starring Matt Smith as the Doctor, Karen Gillan as Amy Pond Williams, and Arthur Darvill as Rory Williams, aka our final Doctor Who past episode. I am Bill Sylvia, the writer in black, and with me are Randy Ronson McCulloch.
After this, The Abyss.
Mad Matt Winchell.
Am I here? Is anybody really here?
And Thomas Fireheart.
Silence.
Thomas.
Who apparently is not here.
Yeah, I forgot to unmute myself as usual.
Oh, well, aren't we just batting wonderfully here? We're almost 45 minutes late because all of us were delayed past the last minute. All of us are hurrying to get this done.
When's the last time we had to watch an hour and a half episode?
True. And guess what? We're never going to have to again.
Not unless we do Miracle Day as one story, which... not Miracle Day. No, Miracle Day, that would be suicide. I meant to say Children of Earth.
That would be me driving down to Ohio just to kill you.
It would take less time to drive to Ohio than to watch Miracle Day as one story.
Yes,
so your time would be well spent. Well, maybe not round trip, but
a lot more.
So I gotta say,
and that's saying driving through Illinois, and that's freaking boring ass flatland.
So I've got to say, if any of us had a clone of themselves spontaneously appear, I don't think our first thought would be, "I'm gonna kill it."
Nope. Okay, my thought would be, okay, which of us gets to fuck off and relax?
Right. I would be like, okay, so we're gonna take turns taking notes at meetings for the other, right?
We're going to keep switching shifts as to who actually has to work while the other one can get some streaming done, right? Because I'm tired already.
Which of us gets to work and which of us gets to stream? I'll Rochambeau you for it.
Right. One gets to cook, the other takes a nap.
Rock, paper, scissors, who gets to work today, asshole?
Oh, no, not rock, paper, scissors, Rochambeau. I kick you in the nuts as hard as I can. And then you kick as hard as you can, and whichever one's still standing gets to go. I'll go first.
I'm not sure that would prevent the uprising. That might encourage it to come sooner.
I'm pretty sure that would just immediately start into a fisticuffs.
We announce ourselves as equal beings, and what do? They kick us in the nuts.
I'm the squiddly spooch.
Yeah, but then after that, you just go to the guy that you just kicked in the nuts, and you're just like, yeah, okay, you win. And you go off.
So how's everybody's week going?
I'm not in the hospital.
Yay.
I've been sleeping for half a week because I'm trying to heal from all the bruising from all the needles, but other than that, I'm okay.
So I've started doing stuff for my second job that I'm switching over to right now. Last 2 days, including today, in fact, I've been over there doing stuff. It's all been rules, regulations, information, and quizzes.
Mm-hmm.
Today was supposed to get to checking out the actual building, finding out where everything is, and then gain some hands-on work. But by the time I got to that point, none of the managers were around anymore, so my coworkers just went, okay, yeah, we don't really know what to do with you, so I guess you can call it quits for today. I'm like, yeah, I guess you might as well, because you want the managers there to monitor your progress, etc.
That was some bad scheduling.
Yeah, I assume some banking or something must have gone down right at that point, and none of them could get back. It happens. It's a thing. I'm not going to hold that one on them. That was just going to be something that's going to possibly happen at any point. But man, do you know how long I've been working, doing all that stuff? That was 10 gobsmacking hours in 2 days.
Yeah. Some people work 16 hours in 2 days. The thing is, usually even part-time employees, they're like, yeah, the first week you've got to be here for the full 40.
Randy,
Just
10
for the
hours
training.
sitting in a monitor learning.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
I've been there.
not good.
I've done that.
At KFC, if we were training somebody and they were staying the full shift and not just doing like 5 hours, and we had a uniform for them, it would be half with the computer based and half just like standing over someone's shoulder.
Yeah, well, how to put this? There's a lot to know about working at this job. This place, actually, come to find out, has a long history going back to the 60s
Yep.
in our area.
Mhm.
And the multiple companies that they have eventually kind of bought out in the area
Yep.
and are still part of the company. And then also, again, all of the warnings and other things you have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I know who you're working for, and I know you don't want to say it online, so I'm not going to say it.
I might have said it before, but yeah, I'm just kind of holding back on trying to always throw the names out there.
But I am very familiar with that company.
And it's also a good company, at least, too. So.
Oh, I know. I know. If you come down here to Madison to visit for a couple of days, I might have you bring me a gallon or two of their dairy. Because that's good dairy.
Yeah, that's been one of their longest chains when they first started branching out.
Well, you see, I remember them from like the 90s, and they weren't.
Yeah, I
I
never saw them in my area until the 90s either. It's
Well,
weird
no,
because they've
I
been
knew
in the
them
States since the 60s.
No, I've known them for a long time because I know where they started, and I'm from that area.
Mm.
So I've known them for a long time. I knew them as that place that's up north there, a little farther north. But yeah, then they came to be fairly ubiquitous around here in Madison in the 80s and 90s. Then they disappeared for about 10 years and came back with a vengeance. And now they're like the dominant business.
One
in
of the
what they
dominant
do.
businesses around here, yeah.
No, in Madison they are the dominant. Because
well,
the dominant used to be someone else and they bought them.
So yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we used to have another grump that was the dominant business, and they just ate them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. The other one was a little more prominent at first, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It came. I mean, it got to be the dominant one in the late '90s, early 2000s, and probably 4 out of every 5 stores in this business was. Can we at least say the genre?
Sure.
Convenience stores.
Mm-hmm.
4 out of every 5 convenience stores in Madison was this chain, and then these guys came in and bought the chain.
Yep. They bought the chain, took all the good stuff that was part of that chain, made it part of their company now, and they're still going.
You realize what that makes them, don't you? The convenience store equivalent to the Borg.
Well, I was thinking of GameStop.
I was actually thinking of Disney. I like them better than Disney.
we are Borg. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile.
Then again, yeah, that does describe at this point about 80% of the U.S. economy. It's very Borgish.
Okay, well now I'm not sleeping tonight. Anybody else been up to anything this past week?
Well, a couple of hours after we finished streaming last week, I decided while watching a streamer I'd been this married couple who stream, I decided to throw $20 at them directly so I could get them to learn a song. And after doing that, I ended up somehow through PayPal, someone got my card details, and I'm out $116 because of that.
Oh,
So I
Ow.
nuked that friggin' PayPal account from all of it. And no more money came out after that. So all I can tell, and from what I found out at the bank the next day, it was like, yeah, they seems like they tried more than that, but the two attempts that actually got money out were like the only two that actually worked.
so at some
And
point
like,
the bank was like, "This is suspicious," and shut it down.
yeah, because it wasn't like someone in my hometown. This was so I live in North Queensland, which is near the top-ish of the top of the country.
Mm.
This happened like over 2,000 kilometers away on the state borders of New South Wales and Victoria, on cities that are basically the same city, but they're like on either side of this river that makes up the border. And
So
I'm
the
like,
Australian equivalent of Kansas City.
I guess so, yeah. And I tried to go to Domino's about it because this is where like someone had basically used it to buy $116 worth of pizza for some reason. Or at least that's what it was showing up as where the money went. And Domino's were basically like, unless you get the cops involved, we're not going to do anything. And I'm like,
Sounds about right.
it's pretty fucking clear that I
Usually-
couldn't have
usually the-
teleported all the way
Mhm.
down there to spend that money.
Usually, the bank is
Like-
more likely to reverse the charges than the other place. 'cause
Yeah, I mean,
the bank is insured, where they're like, "Well, we made the pizza, gave it to somebody. I don't give a fuck if it wasn't you."
yeah. I mean, I put in for I disputed the transaction, so that
Mhm.
will hopefully be dealt with.
That should
They
get
do
dealt
it by
with.
mail, so it's a very slow. It's going to be a very
that's going
fucking
to take
slow
forever, but
process.
it'll be
And-
dealt with eventually.
And it's not a U.S.
Yeah.
bank, so there might be less chance of them being like, "Okay, well, we reversed the charge, but here's a $40 fee just for the sake of it."
Yeah,
Can't say
I
that's
mean,
ever
like
happened
when
to our bank, but I don't know.
yeah, like when I went into the bank on Thursday and just like they were like, yeah, probably better off to just cancel that card as well. And I was gonna do that anyway, but I was like, I wanted to see what I could do on that end from there. And all it really amounted to, all I could do was get the card cancelled and order a new one, which has not shown up yet. But oh well. But it was a matter of like, even the woman who like I ended up talking to get something sorted so I could at least use my phone for the time being to pay for stuff in person until I get my new card.
Mhm.
And they were like, wow, yeah, that's fucked, about like how Domino's wouldn't do shit unless I got the cops involved. And because like, yeah, even she was like, I mean, it's pretty fucking obvious, like it's pretty obvious that this couldn't have been you, because this looks like they had to have somehow tried it either in person or like something. But anyway, it was just like, that was a whole thing. I'm glad it's being dealt with, but it was still just like, well, thank fuck they didn't get more than that. And then of course it was funny because when they initially just said, yeah, that thing you set up should work. Went up to the food court to get something to eat because this was before work. Didn't work. Went back down. I was back in the bank until after they shut. Just getting it sorted so I could actually fucking pay for stuff in person. And it's just like, well, at the very least, this has sort of limited my spending because Twitch has allowed me to pay with PayPal on my new account with a more secure email once. And then every time since, it's been like, you don't have a card attached. You only have your bank account attached.
Which is
So,
supposed to be more
no.
secure than the credit card, so
Yeah.
what the hell is that about?
Yeah. At least that's all I can figure. And maybe it's just because, like, the payment hasn't fully gone through yet because of that. Whereas if I'd done it with a card, it would have just been instant.
Oh, I see. Okay.
That's the only thing I can think of, because the first one did work. And I basically did that as a test to be like, okay, let's see if somehow this gets fucked with, and nothing happens. So I was like, okay, cool. So all I can think of is just it's a matter of, like, because of how I did it, it's taking longer for the payment to actually get through onto their end. So maybe that's why. But yeah, it's like
Mm.
within the next couple of days to a week, I'll have a new card, so won't be an issue. But it's like, it was one of those things where it's just like, the only way the cops would actually fucking do anything is if I just told them, well, if you find them, don't fucking tell me, because I'm gonna want to go down there and slit their goddamn throats for stealing my goddamn money. So but
Sounds
yeah,
like a good
that's how my
transition to
rating
tonight's show.
Yeah,
went.
I was
Talk
waiting
about
for that one to come to an end. Yes.
Talk about slitting throats.
On tonight's show, we have birthdays. I think the only news we have is Big Finish. Yep, and only
Pretty
one
much.
thing there. Was there any geek talk at all?
There is one piece of geek talk from Bill.
Nope, there's no geek talk. There's nerd talk.
Where?
It's nerd. Look at the categories. He's listed it separately. It's nerd talk. And then we've got our episode summary, our review, our final thoughts, and our ratings. So let's get this final this is technically old new Who review underway. So, birthdays. We have 3 birthdays. The first one was the birthday of John Pertwee, who was, of course, the Doctor from 1970 to 74. And he would have been 102, but he died in 1996 at 76 while vacationing in America. Because apparently America is where doctors go to die. It's like the elephant graveyard for doctors. I don't know why.
Do not bring your
Then-
doctors here.
Well, I think John Hurt broke that trend, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Hartnell didn't die over here either. But,
Hmm.
both Troughton and Pertwee did, so. And they weren't living over here. They were just,
Don't
one was here
visit
for a
Tom.
con.
Don't visit Tom. Please don't.
Right.
I don't think he's going anywhere.
I think that was why he started doing autographs on his website, because he started traveling less after 80.
Yeah. It's just like, nope, not going to do that anymore.
It's like, was it Ian McKellen also started traveling less?
Yeah, but I think he was like 80, 85 or something. But yeah,
Mm.
that's why they had to film his stuff for The Hobbit.
Yeah, that's what I was
You
trying
mean
to think
Christopher?
of.
You mean Christopher Lee?
No,
You're just saying Ian McKellen.
His actually, was it Christopher Lee as well? Because I know
Yeah,
that was over 90.
Christopher Lee was like reaching his 90s and was like, I
Yeah.
can't go over to America all the damn
Oh,
time.
okay.
I know both him and McKellen didn't want to go back to New Zealand to film their stuff for
No,
The Hobbit.
Ian McKellen did. Just I
It
think
might
they
have been-
probably
it might
just
have been
used
Lee-
a stunt actor more.
It might have been Lee I was thinking of. I think I was just thinking it happened after Christopher Lee died, because time is curved and space is bendable.
And
And
your
also
brain
Joe
is less
Rogan.
focused than mine, and I've been mushed by 10 hours of constant learning.
Anyway, on the 10th is the birthday of John Sim, who you would remember as the Master from 2007 to 2009 and again in 2017. He turned 51. And the same day is also the birthday of Jackie Lane, who played Dodo Chaplet, who would have been 80 but died earlier this year. And if you can't think of what age she was when she died, you need to go back to school. Anyway, so that's a happy birthday to John, and Jackie. Wow, all J's. All right, so the only new release from Big Finish this week is the Lady Christiana series. With Michelle Ryan, Series 2 is now out. And I think we're out of the 3 this week, so I'm going to delete that
I
category.
think we are. Although, I mean, with the Delta variant, they could have another full lockdown at any month.
And if they do, I can re-add it. So I do not want to go back into the dark. My main gaming groups have now actually started meeting in person again. Don't send us back in the holes. And like I said, Geek Talk is dead this week. So Bill has this new category called Nerd Talk.
Yes, so I listed this as a separate category because I've been doing this summer. My Audible playlist has been a lot of nonfiction psychology books related to various geek media. So just as a taste, the things I've recently read: The Psychology of Final Fantasy, edited by Anthony M. Bean; The Psychology of Harry Potter, edited by Neil Mulholland; and Batman and Psychology, edited by Travis Langley. So those were just a little too niche for me to talk about on the podcast, I thought. But this next one is a little more related, and that's Doctor Who Psychology, A Madman with a Box, also edited by Travis Langley. So I thought that would appeal to Doctor Who fans enough to be worth mentioning. So for those who don't know, I am a PhD student studying psychology who will be teaching my own psychology classes probably starting fall of 2022. So one of the things I've been keeping an eye out for is, in addition to, listening for pleasure and listening to hone my skills, I've also been listening, hey, would this be a more fun textbook than the average textbook that college students usually have to read?
Are you planning on building a reputation as a geek psychologist?
Maybe somewhat. I've always wanted to do a book on the psychology of Willow Rosenberg or on the psychology of Harley Quinn. So it definitely would be something I would at least be interested in doing some work with. And I was a little spoiled in that my undergraduate school, in the honors college, would have basically come up by a professor that were kind of interdisciplinary, but would be focused on certain media. So there was a Westworld class, which I did not take. There was a Black Mirror class I took, which was a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of English, English literature. Well, whatever. It's just called English in American colleges for some reason. It's what do they call it? Letters in Spanish colleges. It's weird. Anyway, that's but yeah, so those sort of courses. So that's those were always my favorite courses as a student. And so if I get a professor position at a school that has that sort of course, I would love to teach a course that was, for example, the psychology and philosophy of Batman sort of class. So nope, it started playing instead of showing details. Here we go. So the Doctor Who psychology has such well, like many of them, it borrows from a variety of subdisciplines within psychology. There's a chapter basically going through and diagnosing the Ninth Doctor onward with chronic post-traumatic stress disorder with dissociative symptoms. There's a bit on moral foundation theory that compares different alien races that the Doctor fights. But the core of this book, and one that definitely by far has the most chapters associated to it, is personality psychology or personology. And it definitely except for the fact that it doesn't go into personality testing or anything, because that would have nothing to do with Doctor Who. But in terms of teaching the theories and comparing and contrasting different doctors and a few of the companions and such, but mostly the different doctors, this would be really valuable in a psychology of personality class, or could be useful as a way of building a psychology of Doctor Who and personality course, something along those lines, with the evolution of personality theories from Freud and his kin up to the modern, actually more modern than was taught in some of my courses, because the 5-factor theory of personality is well known, but this even discussed a 6-factor theory of personality that I do not think I had ever heard of before. So this book came out 3 years ago, so I don't know how new that theory is, but it definitely seems a fitting way to kind of show people those theories without boring them. And I would say it was a pretty good book. There were a few minor things I had issue with. For example, they kind of reference the idea that the Doctor goes through about 4 or 5 regenerations in 6 years, but then like a paragraph or 2 later, they point out that the Doctor reports his age inconsistently. Like, yeah, he's probably lying, and I wouldn't say he actually goes through that many in 6 years. But that's a really minor thing and has pretty little to do with really interesting things about Doctor Who or about psychology. Overall, I would definitely recommend this. These sort of books are really good if you're interested in learning a little bit about the theory without having a psychology background. So if you're a Doctor Who fan, this is a great way to learn about things like personality theory. And if you're a psychology student who wants to learn to apply it to Doctor Who, then it's definitely great there too.
All right. Anything else?
Nope, I think that's about it.
Must admit, most of that went a little bit above my head, but
Uh,
I am not a psychology major, so.
right.
All right. So we are down to the episode summary, the actual bones of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe the person who did the summary this week, double checking, is Thomas.
Yep.
So, are you ready?
Okay. Yep.
All right, starting in 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Start that again. Misclicked. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, we open on a team of people checking on some acid, with one of them falling into it and the others barely reacting. Only for the same person who just died to show up and be angry with them. Meanwhile, on the TARDIS, the crew deals with a solar tsunami or solar storm, only to land on Earth in the future at a monastery that's being used to pump acid to the mainland for whatever reason we never find out. We learn that they have access to something called the Flesh that essentially makes Scooby clones of the workers to deal with the acid so the normal workers don't die. The solar storm hits again while the workers are still linked up to their gangers, and as a result, the gangers gain the ability to walk around on their own, with Jenny's ganger even pulling a snake neck thing and scaring off Rory. While everyone else is running around, Rory has a moment with Jennifer's ganger and decides to try helping her instead. The Doctor brings the humans and gangers together to try and make them work together, but the real Miranda shows up and kills Buzz's ganger, causing the other gangers to run off and regroup, intent on killing their human counterparts. Rory runs off to find Jenny again, only for the rest of the group to be confronted by a ganger version of the Doctor. After Ganger Doctor finally manages to deal with the Doctor's complex mind, they all manage to escape from the room they were barricaded into and make it to the control room, or a control room, to call for help from the mainland, with the gangers overhearing the call. Later, Rory runs into 2 Jennies, with one ending up killing the other, who turned out to be a ganger. Later still, the Jenny still around turns out to also have been a ganger, and kills Buzzer before tricking Rory into locking the Doctor and company into the room with the acid. One of the Doctors uses a video call from Jimmy's kid to make his ganger go to try and save the others, only for him to arrive too late, and the real Jimmy gets hit with acid from the thing that it was in and die in his ganger's arms. After Ganger Jimmy takes a call from Jimmy's son, they retreat, only to run into Jenny Ganger, who has turned into some sort of monstrosity at this point, with the worker named Dickon sacrificing himself to buy them a bit of time. The Doctors both reveal as well that Amy had been assuming the Ganger Doctor was the real Doctor this whole time because they'd switched shoes ages ago. Ganger Doctor and Ganger Miranda stay behind and destroy the Jenny Ganger before being destroyed themselves as the rest go back to the mainland, with Dickens' Ganger and Miranda deciding to speak out about what happened while Jimmy's Ganger goes to be a dad. Suddenly, the Doctor reveals Amy is pregnant and ready to give birth, but back on the TARDIS admits he intentionally brought them to see the flesh as he needed to examine it, as the Amy they're currently traveling with is a Ganger and not the real Amy. As the Doctor destroys the fake Amy, we see the real Amy wake up in some sort of medical setup, heavily pregnant and being confronted by the woman fake Amy had been seeing previously, telling her she's ready to give birth and to push. And that's it.
3 minutes, 27 seconds.
There was a lot of skim because I was like,
Yeah.
maybe if I do just end up being
Ooh.
Yeah, you really
Yeah.
kind
Is it my ears or your mic that's turning into a Cyberman?
of. I think everybody's going Cybermen today.
Wow.
Oh, jeez.
Well, no, I can
yeah,
apparently hear
I'm-
Matt fine, but anybody outside the state is screwed.
Discord tells me I'm only at 1 bar of connection to the call, so.
Oh, dear Lord. They've all gone cyborg on us, Randy. We're last ones alive.
Oh God, they're coming for us. You realize this, Matt, right?
Gotta go save the cows.
Wow, you really do live in the country, don't you?
We gotta protect our dairy.
Okay. Are you guys back? Or are you guys still robot?
It says 3 bars,
I mean,
so
I
hopefully
don't
I'm
know.
clear.
Okay.
All right. Well, while you're clear, you can tell me what you liked about this episode, Bill, because you're first.
So what I liked is that I feel that this was kind of the moral conundrum of not the Centaurans, of the Silurians episodes done better.
Okay, you actually brought that up.
Yep. So they have that whole live in peace versus fight the other thing going on. But the part of the conflict largely arises from the fact that they kind of do a what seems to me to be an animal rights angle. As someone who's been involved in a few talks and reading literature related to veganism, I recognize some themes there. But they use that basically to say, hey, you've been killing us all this time. We bear a grudge, rather than we just met, but somebody gets really pissed off one day and decides to start, become a murderer and destroy things. So it's a lot of the same conflict, but handled in a much better way, I think.
I don't agree with you, and I'm going to discuss that on what I dislike.
Okay.
And I'm going to bring up more than just the Silurian link,
Mm.
because apparently this I'll talk about it in a bit.
Okay.
Thomas, what about you? What did you like about the episode?
I honestly liked the God, there was something specific, but because I'm trying to think, like one thing was almost more of a scene, than an overarching thing. But on the rewatch, it was interesting, the whole aspect of the Doctor and the the gang and Doctor having switched places, like very early. Because I honestly forgot about that twist because it's been so long since I've watched this. Like I kind of got the vibe of it, but then when they actually say it, I was like, ah, yes. And then rewatching that today with that like fresh in my mind was like, oh, okay, yeah, there are hints to it pretty much the whole way through. And it makes some scenes more interesting because you're aware of that. So it's one of those stories that benefits from a rewatch rather than being hindered by it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd forgotten that till about halfway through the episode myself. Matt, how about you? Is there anything you liked about the episode?
I think like about the episode in general. I definitely like the visuals, both the makeup effects as well as the sets. The sets are a nice, interesting mesh of both old architecture as well as modern prop design put in there to kind of make things feel a little more different. They've used these kind of jumpsuits before, so it's just decent costuming. But I guess you call it the Rebel Flesh people had a pretty interesting facial makeup that I've maybe seen some things similar to it, but never quite like it, and it was a really good job.
Okay. Yeah, I can't remember anything like that either. I mean, sometimes they just used contacts, and that was good enough to get through.
The times when they're hiding, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So I'm actually going to say I liked some of the character development arcs that the secondary characters got in this. In particular, the commander there, or the leader, the head, the boss.
Yeah.
She started very much the hard-assed, I'm not going to listen to you that we tended to see during the second Doctor era all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But she mellowed as time went on, and the ganger version of her was actually pretty interesting to deal with. Likewise, the I forget what his name is, but the father, the one that had the little boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his arc was nice as well. I liked those two. They seemed to put a lot of character development into them. All right, so let's talk about what we disliked. Bill, you're still with us. You can go first.
Okay. I think this is a relatively minor thing, but it kind of annoyed me in the sense that they seem to expect us to have seen something that I never ended up seeing. And that is that they talk about how, oh yeah, they told the Doctor and the ganger apart by their shoes, which they had switched and everything else. But they usually shoot Matt Smith from like the shins up. So I don't think I ever saw his shoes, and I could not tell you what they look like normally.
There was one scene where you saw both their pairs of shoes.
Yeah, like
And
one scene is not enough.
Amy intentionally looks at their shoes and realizes, this is the one who said he needed a new pair of shoes, so I'm going to assume this is the Doctor. Sort of a thing.
Yep. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think you need a little more visual notice to drive that home.
Like, they show them a few more times, but they don't make it deliberate, like, actually shots of their, like, just their feet sort of a thing.
Right.
Okay. So, Thomas, anything you disliked?
Pretty much like, some of the CGI stuff is just like, oh god. Especially the whole, like, Jenny just going full friggin'
Cronenberg.
Yeah. It's just like, did we really need that? I mean, like, the snake head neck thing that I joked about in the summary was like, okay, that's kind of funny, and that just made me think of the Nope meme, like the Team Fortress 2 meme. But like, even that is like, okay, if it was just that, I could have dealt with that. But then when it happens at the end, I'm like, well, this came out of fucking nowhere. um,
Yeah, it really did.
I guess we need an actual literal monster, and you can't just have Jenny going around punching through people or
Yeah.
anything.
It wouldn't be the first script that had someone turn around and be like, "Well, this is a cool, interesting plot and all, but where's your monster?" And they're like, "We weren't gonna put a monster. No, you need to put a monster." Which is funny
Yeah.
because unlike a lot of kids shows, Doctor Who is not written primarily as a toy commercial.
Yeah.
Where's your end boss?
Like I can see that in like Power Rangers or Super Sentai. They're like, no, Hasbro said they need a new toy off of this episode. What's going to be the new toy? But that's not the case. As far as I know, Doctor Who is not funded by Hasbro
Yeah, it's
Also, I
not.
don't think kids
or
would want to
Bandai or
buy.
anything else.
Yeah. Also, I don't think kids would want to buy a toy of the thing that probably gave them nightmares,
Yeah,
because that is some nightmare fuel.
it is. I mean, like I mentioned, it's a Cronenberg. It's a pure nightmare
Yeah.
device. And that's actually a good transition into mine. Because I have mentioned before that Moffat tends to write the same story over and over again. One of his things being body horror. Another one is his way of writing up the main companion. Because let's face it, when you boil it down, the end of Clara and Bill's story is functionally the same. And his inability to kill people, although that didn't hold true here.
For a change.
But I noticed in this one, Moffat also tends to write the us versus them story. He did it with the Silurians. He did it here, and he would go on to do it again with the Zygons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I mean, that also was one of our really highly rated episodes.
Oh yeah, he kept improving it as he did it.
And
But it's still, when you boil it down to brass tacks, it's the same damn story.
Yeah.
I mean, people used to bitch about the second Doctor having all these freaking base under siege episodes. Well, Moffat's just as guilty,
yeah, he just has 3 or 4 templates. Yeah, I thought when you talked about recurring things, you're going to go the body horror angle.
No, I was actually the us versus them. And the thing is that always annoys me. It's always the one irrational person
on either
that sets
side.
everybody off to war. Yeah, for no reason.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the trigger each time. And it's like, oh, come on. Try to do this a little better.
Although in that case, I think it's more the credited episode writer than the person who commissioned the script.
Maybe.
It might be that there's a lot of writers that don't know how to write that sort of story any better without that sort of
Star Trek did it
off
better repeatedly. They would have these first contacts that went wrong.
Right.
And it wasn't because somebody was deliberately, oh, God, it's us versus them. They would do a faux pas. Something would happen. An accident would happen.
Yeah.
And one side would blame the other, and it would devolve into war.
And the funny thing is all you really needed in this for Miranda flying off the handle to get the cattle prod thing, whatever the fuck, is just see the attempted attack on Rory at least. Because now she's like, okay, good. I was right.
Now,
they're out to get us. Now I'll go to that. At least that would have been like something rather than just. I don't think we technically even saw her after a point because the one turned out to be a ganger anyway. And so then it like, she's just been off grabbing this stuff regardless. Like that was her first instinct. And it's like, what?
So I mentioned before that it reminded me of a lot of like animal rights and vegan discussions, and I think that theme helps me interpret this a little bit because it's a lot of people when arguing about animal rights and things, a lot of people will come down extremely harshly in a way just to kind of protect their existing worldview and their habits and basically say, no, it's not that I was a monster all along. It's that you're not really a person. And I have to act to enforce that. What's actually, well, since we were talking about psychology books, part of cognitive dissonance theory in a way. And I think that that's a lot of what's happening there is she's basically saying, well, if you're real people, I've been a serial killer all this time. I can't accept that. And the only alternative is that you're not real people, and therefore I need to kill you. And it's not a good instinct, but it does happen in people.
Mm.
Now, you're not, that said, you're still, of course, welcome to not like it, but that's how I understand that action to be.
All right. No, it's just, I really wish Moffat and, his writing staff would have a little more variety when they do this kind of thing.
That's fair.
Because there's more than one ways to do it. You don't have to tell that it being the exact same thing of one extremist.
That's also why you don't need the same showrunner for how many years? Well, he was there for a long time.
He was there for a good 7.
Yeah.
Russell T was there for 5.
Yeah.
He was there for 4 seasons plus the year of specials.
Right.
Moffat was there for 7, in which he racked up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 5 seasons. And and a couple of them just were empty years.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, it really goes to show that, like, with Moffat, I mean, we'll have said it plenty of times before anyway, but he was a better off being a writer who only occasionally did stuff and had, like, time to do that stuff and not having to worry about being a showrunner on top of that. Whereas once he's the showrunner and has to basically write and edit everyone else's shit, it's like, the quality kind of dips for his stuff.
Now, my big thing just noting is just, like I said, I wish there was a little more. They would go through and they'd say, let's do this a different way, but they don't do that.
No, that's it. I do kind of wonder. I don't know if we ever get that sort of detail unless there's a commentary on the DVD. I kind of wonder how much detail goes into commissioning the episode. Like, does Moffat just say, I need someone to write an episode that introduces remote control bodies, and that's all he says, and then they write the episode and he edits it? Or does he actually, like, write out, a partial outline and be like, we want this us versus them story and everything. And then who wrote it? Matthew Graham gets it.
I don't know. I mean, that seems to be
they've never really
more
disclosed how much
thing.
goes into it. Yeah.
Okay, so favorite scene. Bill.
You skipped me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm sorry,
Bad.
Matt. I had that perfect segue and then I forgot.
Bad.
But, all right. Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Mine kind of hits in a vaguish similar area with the last two, wherein I really don't get why these semi-human things that are definitely trying to prove how human they are by being sensible, except for the one crazy in their group, so frequently has one or more of them devolve into almost monsters and then back again.
Hmm.
It really does smack of someone forced in a "we need a monster of the week."
Hmm.
Is my major issue. Is someone in the writing was either forced or someone forced a change on it. It kind of feels.
Hmm.
Hmm.
I mean, at least here they try to give her a reason, but it's a shitty reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I was lost and scared as a kid, so now I'm going to be bigger and stronger by killing everyone else. No.
Right.
How not to write a character.
Yeah. I mean, I will admit it's better than the "I'm evil because I'm evil" that frequently happened during this era, but
Right.
still, you can do better. Okay.
I'm evil because twirling my mustache.
All right. Now let's move on to favorite scenes. And Bill, you are first.
Yep. So I'm gonna have to go, even though it ended up devolving into what Randy just described. I'm gonna say the scene with Jennifer and Rory in the bathroom, kind of, Rory showing that human side, and building this connection with what turns out to be Jennifer's ganger. I thought that was a really well done scene and a really great way to set up Rory's role for the episode.
As the idiot. Yeah. I'm not going to describe it any other way. He just basically winds up being a patsy for most of it.
And he's the main person seeing the, for lack of a better word, humanity on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And yet he basically gets used and abused for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Thomas, what about you? What's your favorite scene?
It's probably just because and technically I'm going with this because it doubles as what I realized was my original pick for overall thing. But the scene where the doctor basically reveals, "Oh no, we didn't actually end up here by accident. I realized something was fucked up and I wanted to make sure, so I had to intentionally come here to scan the flesh so I could figure out if Amy was legit or not. And now I know that no, this is a fake Amy and the real one's out there somewhere else." Because like I forgot about that twist at the end of this, so I was like, "Oh, sweet, the doctor intentionally." Like, it's interesting just in alone for the fact that the doctor intentionally went somewhere
It
in that
It's
case,
really
and
confusing the first time you watch it, and then once you've
yeah.
watched the season and come back, you're like, "Oh yeah."
I'm not
Like,
as fond of that, but only because the action of that scene was an actual counterpoint to the doctor's mentality the entire episodes. He's this big, ganger rights, they're people too. And then he just turns around and dissolves the ganger Amy.
Popped her like a
I
balloon.
was gonna mention that later.
Well, if you want to bring it up later, we'll discuss it in detail. I'm just saying. I didn't like the scene that well because of it. All right, so
That was
Matt.
Thomas and me.
Yep.
Favorite scene, the Ganger Doctor second episode when he is dealing with trying to keep up with the doctor's brain and you hear different doctors coming out of him.
I mean, it was all stock audio, but yeah.
I mean, I do find that interesting that as far as I could tell, it seemed like the only one that wasn't just Matt Smith saying an existing line was the
fourth.
Tom Baker one. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was also a David Tennant line. That was said.
There's also a First Doctor line.
There was,
Yeah.
but Matt Smith was saying it and he got it wrong. Because it was not "we shall come back," it was "I will come back."
Mm-hmm.
And I know that line by heart because they used to air it in front of the Five Doctors.
I will come back. Yes, I will come back.
I shall come back, actually.
Oh.
I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until
And
then,
he
there'll
never
be
did.
no tears, no
And then
regrets, no anxiety. Just go forward with all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
There's also the reverse the polarity line, but that's definitely Matt saying it.
Mm-hmm.
And then reverse the jelly baby or the neutron.
Yeah, that's him like mixing them all up.
Yeah.
But no, the fact that he said we shall come back, I almost wanted to hit him for that. It's like, no, Matt, bad Matt. Check your lines. Because I wanted to bet dollars to donuts that was Matt screwing it up. And
no
the
one
director
catching
just
it.
went, yeah, no one caught it.
No Smith,
Yeah.
bad Smith.
Yeah.
Just like nobody corrected his pronunciation of Metabolus 3.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. So that would go from there to
Your favorite.
me. Yep. Oh, my favorite. Considering how much I bitch about this episode, I think I do have to go with the whole, no, you've been preaching to the wrong doctor. I'm the ganger doctor. That, because it's just that, oh shit look from Amy. that no, you can't be. Because she's a complete and total bitch.
Yeah.
For most of this. And I mean, the way she's like, oh no, you can't be the real doctor. This is the real doctor. You know, that's normally stuff the doctor would be like, nope, you're not on the TARDIS crew anymore.
I kind of wonder how many of those opinions Rose Tyler was biting her tongue with in at the end of series 4.
Because
and like
I've gone through the whole thing going, remembering one of my favorite phrases. One of mine, I've got a 3,000. A difference that makes no difference is no difference. And this is a literal case where you see that. They are basically the same person with the same memories, everything. It's a difference that makes no difference. So
Amy said, fuck the ship of Theseus.
And she's fine treating them both like the doctor for like 3 minutes. And then she has to go out of her way to make sure she knows which one is which doctor. So that she can start poo-pooing on the other one. And I'm like, the doctor's here to try to do unity and you're pulling this shit?
Right.
Bitch. Actually, I should have saved that because that was my least favorite scene. But what the hell?
That's where this entire favorite scenes section, we've been talking about what we don't like about different scenes.
Is it okay. Going to what he doesn't like?
Speaking of what we don't like, I will count mine as done and move on to you guys. Bill.
Yeah, so my least favorite scene is when we've just had this story about, gangers are people too. And then the doctor is like, well, now that we've completely confirmed you're a ganger and what that's all about, time to execute Ganger Amy. It's, what the fuck?
Yeah, it is a total what the fuck moment. Because it's a complete switch of everything he believed in. It's like, and you can tell.
It almost makes it seem like Moffat wrote that last scene and then read the script for the episode after the fact.
Yep. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
And it's kind of funny because it's kind of a recurring theme in this series. Because it's like, well, we can't have two Amy's on the TARDIS.
Yep.
Or was that series 5 with the older Amy?
Yeah, there was one on series 5, And then there were the shorts in between seasons where there was like Amy from like 15 minutes in the future and Amy from now, checking each other out.
Actually, I think the girl who waited. Are you sure that was last season?
I'm trying to remember if that was this same season or not.
I think
Girl
it
Who
was
Waited
series 5.
was this? No, that's series 6.
It
I'm looking
was
at
this
the
season?
story
Okay.
chart now. It
Oh,
was
okay.
between Night Terrors and the God Complex.
So there you go. It's even after this. So
Yep.
So yeah, I guess the Doctor just doesn't like having two Amy's around.
Yeah.
And it is kind of funny because it's like
Rory
they're
might
far
not
enough.
mind.
Yeah, like they're far enough in the future that he could have just gone, just get off the TARDIS, just take on a new identity, just live here.
Mhm.
Like, it's far enough in the future. I mean, it's only like I think it was the thing I read said 22nd century, so not like extremely far compared to what Doctor Who usually goes forward in time, but like it's still forward enough in time that obviously Amy is long friggin' dead. So,
Especially with what happened to Amy. So
well,
yeah.
yeah. So it's like, fuck it, you can just get off the TARDIS and go live your life and whatever. But and
Although
like
she might have to live with that whole no birth certificate or these
right, yeah, and like
the system says you died decades ago thing.
Yeah. It's also one of those things of like, if they played it as like, I have to be sure because the Doctor's not entirely sure yet, so he's more doing it as like, well, if this works, then you're not the real Amy, and if it doesn't, then you are the real Amy. Bang! It is.
You know what they
Amy.
could have done, and I could definitely see some other writers doing this. Make that Ganger become the official, keep Amy's face, but become the official ambassador of Flesh Kind, separate from Amy's identity, and then just go off into the world, and these people are going to support you with their experiences.
And I guess even by that thing, he could have had the Ganger Amy go in with the other two to that like press conference or whatever the fuck it was, and then take Rory back onto the TARDIS and leave. And Rory's like, "Well, what the fuck are we leaving for? That wasn't actually Amy." And then what? And then the reveal.
Yeah, there would have been better ways to do it, and it didn't. Instead, they basically just made the Doctor a big hypocrite.
Yep.
Although it is weird because the way it's like, wait, so was the real Amy's consciousness sort of stuck in this one? Because the thing is like, Ganger Amy's gone, and then suddenly real Amy
From what
wakes
I
up.
understood,
So it's like, what?
real Amy's consciousness was constantly stuck in the Ganger, and she would just periodically see that vision of the eye patch woman without knowing what was going on.
Because
that was like the only break in reality that she ever had.
Before the storm, the Gangers were pretty much like something that you controlled via VR. You kind of went into a harness. Your entire consciousness was channeled through it.
Yeah.
It was like Avatar. And I don't mean the Airbender, I mean the frickin' James Cameron movie.
Nobody watched that. I can't say that because it somehow made money, but nobody has ever talked about their, what they like or dislike about that movie ever.
Cat people.
That's because it was visually impressive, but really just derivative of other things. But yeah, it was basically they used the Gangers like they were avatars, and I mean that in the digital sense. In the cyberpunk sense, you hack into the net and you go around in a digital version of your body. Well, here they didn't do it digitally. Okay, so I think we've covered that one. So
Yep.
Thomas, your least favorite scene?
Kind of relating to my least favorite aspect. Uh, the scene where the Jenny ganger is like comforting the pile of like discarded gangers and then like does the whole sort of detached jaw thing because that
God
effect just
damn
looks
it.
so terrible.
Took
uh,
mine away from me.
mm,
Yeah, the visual effects in that one are just awful.
uh. It's like honestly, it would have just been better if she just gone back into like the half formed face
Mm-hmm.
and leapt at him, sort of like a friggin' Bilbo from Lord of the Rings moment of just like
Or kind of
just
the
like
Conjuring,
jumping
yeah.
at. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been better to go for like a Conjuring scare, but they just do this really silly slackjaw thing, and you got these really awkward, non-realistic cutouts that are like doing whatever in the background. And it's supposed to, obviously, it was them trying to go for a spooky moment, but it is not effective.
Hmm.
All
At least
right.
for me, it's not.
So Matt, you had yours taken. Do you have a backup?
Not particularly. That one's just the.
I mean, there are other CGI moments you could probably
Yeah,
go
there
for.
are other CGI moments sprinkled throughout, but that one's particularly one of the worst.
What about the one where she turns around her head 180 degrees?
Like I said, lots of bad CGI sprinkled throughout, but that one was like legitimately the worst.
Mm.
Okay. Can I nominate one from a plot aspect since I already took mine in your
Sure.
place then? How about when the evil Jenny, let's just call her that,
Yeah.
tricks Rory with another ganger, being the so-called warrior for ganger rights. She disposes of a ganger the exact same way that everyone she claims to hate has done.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's also an awkward one too,
Mm-hmm.
plot wise.
I
I mean,
I couldn't remember it in my rewatch, and I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna try and say like when you melt a person with this type of acid, they look like a ganger, but that's
Mm-mm.
not the direction they went either. Like that would have been hard to believe, but it
yeah.
would have been in character. Whereas this, like, it makes sense visually, but it's not in character.
Yep, and then you find out
Yeah.
no, it was a fake because they did it later. But
Or
yeah, it turns her into a fucking hypocrite.
Or maybe, like,
Yeah.
even if they had challenged her on it, like, if she had been like, well, the ends justify the means, and the other gangers were like, what the fuck? Or even, or anybody else was like, what the fuck? But as far as I know, nobody even questions it, and the only body to even have a conversation with her about it is Rory.
Yeah,
And he was the one that was getting lied to at the time.
And I guess
so
he's kind of too shocked to be like, well, what the fuck?
yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, that just kind of hit me as kind of defeating your purpose.
Yeah.
I'm fighting because you killed all these gangers, and I'm gonna kill one now just because I need you to believe I'm the real person. No, no.
Yeah. Of course, now I'm realizing another scene that I would have brought up if I hadn't thought to just go for the crappy CGI one is when they find the real Jenny's body. They don't cut away right before she takes a deep breath when she's supposed to be dead.
whoops.
It's like, oh damn it! They could have just, not. They could have cut away a bit sooner because it's very obvious that she takes a breath and moves, and it's like, oh, well, damn.
Yeah, she probably held it as long as she could, but then couldn't.
Yeah.
And they couldn't cut soon enough, maybe, for some reason.
Mm.
Okay. That was definitely worthy of an honorable mention, but only an honorable mention.
Yeah.
Because I see that kind of stuff all the time because it can't be helped.
Yeah.
All right.
Edit their breath out in CGI.
Just like they edit out mustaches?
Okay, so now I think we're at final thoughts.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's you, Bill.
Yep. So I know while my connection went out a bit while other people were talking, hopefully it stays stable while I'm talking. But yeah, I would say I pretty well liked this episode. The visual effects didn't bother me as much as it did for some others, mainly because they knew how to handle the lighting with these visual effects. And some of the scenes seemed to be so quick that I missed them, even though they seemed to be major things that people noticed. But that's ADHD for you. Anyway, yeah, as I mentioned, there's definitely some themes in there that tie into a lot of the animal rights literature and discussions, which are definitely make it interesting. But they also do not try and make a one-to-one allegory and make a moral statement about anything like that. They just, kind of draw parallels and, let you make your own decisions about what is living. Um, there's definitely some flaws in the plot, especially that ending. The ending, I would think, being the biggest one. But I think they do a pretty good job handling the moral dilemma. I'm not as bothered as Randy by their repeating it because Doctor Who's repeated lots of types of stories. Overall, I would say this gets a pretty high grade, and it sounds like I'm going to be the high one from this discussion so far.
All right, Thomas.
Issues that we've set aside, I still sort of like this. I mean, I will say in certain parts feel like they drag on a bit much. It was kind of hard for me to stay focused as much. I mean, it generally is anyway for me, but still, it was like when I watched this through last night, I found myself either scrolling through stuff on my phone, and then even after I turned that off because I was like, no, I should probably focus. I would like be looking stuff up on the internet anyway on my laptop, and it's just like there was just certain bits that just entirely lost me, and the whole like, well, I guess we have to have a monster of the week thing at the end when it could have just been, Jenny with the hot in between face just punching through shit and whatever, because the gangers are supposed to be like, even if not necessarily full blown superhuman strength, at least stronger than the human counterparts. So it's like, why did we have to go there? But yeah, it's like that. Even with that aside, and I guess it was harder to concentrate the first time through. The second time through, after getting to the twists and then paying attention the second time through to see like, oh, okay, yeah, they're hinting at it all the freaking time that the doctors switched places and stuff like that. And oh, okay, yeah, Ganger Amy is assuming that Ganger Doctor is the real one. That's an interesting thing that they never really explained, but it is kind of interesting that it's like, okay, yeah, it's interesting that Ganger Amy essentially automatically assumes that the fake doctor is the real one.
Although it's human Amy's brain, so it's not quite the
yeah,
same.
yeah. But yeah, and like it's funny because I was almost like, I think I've only seen A Good Man Goes to War once. I almost might check that out to see how that resolves, because I honestly kind of forget, because I think I've only seen that the once. So I'll give it credit for that as well. it actually made me kind of want to see, okay, so how does this resolve then? Because I honestly don't really remember. But yeah, like it's, and I think it's also just maybe like the repetitiveness of the us versus them doesn't hit me as much, just because it's been a while since I've watched all of this in order and watched some of the other us versus them things, so it's like it's not as fresh in my mind. But I can get that. It does, Moffat really does only have a handful of things that he does to varying degrees of success. But yeah.
It just annoys me because the more I look at Moffat, the smaller his bag of tricks become.
But yeah, like while I would say if people haven't checked this out, I'd still say it's worth giving a shot. I'd say like a detriment of this compared to last week is a lot easier to watch without the entire series plot. This you kind of do, because it's like right before the end of it, of like at least the story up to this point being paid off. So it's like this was a bit more wait, what? Where? In that regard. But yeah, even then I'd still say it's worth checking out. Just probably better to go in with context of what was going on in the series up to this point.
Yeah, you kind of have to watch Series 6 all in order, except you don't really want to, because the more you watch it, the less you like it.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the all you can stand for $1 special. Seriously. Okay, Matt.
So my general feelings on this is that the story had a lot of good ideas, and in a broad sense, it was really good up until some dodgy stuff started happening in that last half. The whole we needed someone to go completely nutso and become a monster of the week, and we've mentioned a couple times how the episode ends, and that goes into a side tangent of how much I hate the rest of the season. Because yeah, that main plot sucked. I will say, however, for the rest of this, I still like the rest of the story, and even if there's dodgy stuff going on in the second half, there's still good things here and there throughout. The practical effects were really well done. The digital effects are also an issue, but thankfully they're not on screen as often, so it doesn't have to bother you as much. Character wise, there's some weird stuff going on with Amy. Rory's basically useless. The Doctor is doing lots of interesting stuff, and actually the side characters are making up for the companions. So yeah, that's a thing. I guess that's most of my general thoughts on this one.
All right. So for mine, this, if I had to rate the 2 episodes separately, the first episode would rate a lot higher than the second one.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the second one, they kind of started just blowing, either for time or for lack of ideas, just started throwing random shit at the wall and seemed to get what sticks. Plus, you had the Moffats ongoing plot insert, which completely defied what was the rest of the episode was about.
Mm-hmm.
The CGI was pretty dodgy on and off throughout, but the acting was good. I guess, like I said, between the first and the second, I can only count the writing as half-assed. But the acting was very well done. Some of the character development was nice. All in all, I might be a scooch above mediocre, but it's not going to be much better than. All right. Let's rate this puppy, and I believe Bill gets first rating.
Well, it's moved down to the verge, but I think it's still, I still like it enough to keep it on the positive side of 4.5.
Jesus.
You are very generous with this one.
I said I was probably going to be the high one.
That's the high.
Yeah.
All right, Thomas.
Well, despite the issues I have with it, I think there's enough good in it to give it a decent rating, but I'm not going to be as generous as Bill. So I'm going to give it a 4. So that'll be 3 4s in a row now for me.
Yep. Matt.
I'm going to have to give this a 3.5, I think. It's okay. It's definitely not that overwhelmingly good, though.
Yeah, I agree with Matt, and I'm going to give it a 3.5 as well. Like I said, it's a scooch over mediocre, but not much better. That second half really blows it. It would have been up to a 4. Easy.
Yeah, that could have been an easy 4, and they fumbled at the first hurdle when they get into that episode.
So, between our scores, we discover that Thomas is the closest to the actual average with a 3.9. And Bill being way the hell out on Mars.
Life on Mars.
I'm 0.5 above Thomas. That's not that far off.
Yet it is, because he's a point above that, so it makes it a full 0.6 above the score.
And we're only a 0.4 below it.
Yep. All right, and that will put it at 216. Sorry. Out of 394 things reviewed.
No happiness patrol, but
it is on par with The Leisure Hive, Underworld, The Crotons, The Power of the Daleks, The Doctor's Daughter. How did that get so low? Guardians of the Dead, Chase, The Next Doctor, Blink, The Monster of Peladon, Midnight, Kerblam, Into the Dalek, Warrior's Gate, Colony in Space, The Brain of Morbius, The Deadly Assassin, and Knock Knock. It is better than Keeper of Traken, Boomtown, Ghostlight, The Faceless Ones, Enemy of the World, Girl in the Fireplace, etc. And it is not as good as The Lodger, Planet of Evil, Frontos, Carnival of Monsters, The Censorites, The Aztecs, and not as good as Curse of the Black Spot from last week. So that's all we have to say. Actually, I hadn't rated that one in the queue yet, so that would actually drop it down a point further. It is 217 out of 394 things. That is all we have to say about the Rebel Flesh and the Almost People.
so please let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the episode? And do you agree with us, or do you think it's much better or much worse than our ratings? Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to get our weekly exports, or follow us on Twitch to see our streams every Tuesday night.
Well, that's it for Doctor Who. We've reviewed every episode and serial in our 9 years of podcasting. So that's it. Well, plenty of spin-offs yet to do. But before those, let's go ahead and do some Big Finish. Classic Big Finish. Let's start next week with Big Finish, The Chimes of Midnight, an 8th Doctor adventure. Written by Robert Shearman and starring Paul McGann as the Doctor and Inia Fisher as Charlie Pollard. We will see you next week.
Bye-bye. Good night.